Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. While the business has been around for 101 years now, they've remained on the cutting edge of building materials. That's why so many contractors turn to them. It's why you should turn to them for your do-it-yourself products. They always have the best materials for you to use in your home, your business, wherever you're doing your project. Best building materials in East Tennessee come from A.G. Hines Company. You see the phone number? You can visit them online. You can drop by and see them in downtown Knoxville. Look them up. They've got a street named after them. That's how long they've been here. All right. Guys, is Pruitt as obviously doomed as it would appear? His roster is thinning. Recruiting is frozen. Now, you did get a transfer in from Virginia Tech, but your roster is going the wrong way. Coaches, you're not interviewing anybody that's a wow factor for fans. Can you bring him back after this point? To me, it looks like he looks doomed to me because of that fact. I don't see how somebody survives this.
Well, I think if your plan was we don't want him back in 2021, you're doing all the things that signify that.
It's a good way of putting it.
Because,
yes.
Who knows exactly what the intention is. And ultimately, there's so many cooks in the kitchen at this point that it's hard to say because, again, you talk to different people, you hear different things, and people may have different ideas about what's happening. But ultimately, like you said, if you're handicapping the coaching situation with hiring assistants and extending assistants, bringing in players, leaving players to wonder, they don't know what's going to happen, and if they have a sure situation somewhere else, they may go somewhere else. That's a problem. So if you're trying to keep him, you're doing all the things that are going to make that more difficult for him, and that if you do keep him, basically eliminates his options to win enough to come back in 2022, and it's like, what are you doing at this point?
You're just
thinking
feeding into
18
the
months.
That was my point, because if you don't do it now, you're going to do it after the next season because you've cut his legs out from under him with the hiring of assistants, with recruiting, with everything that's going on. It's going to be really hard to bring any coaches in here, any players in here. I don't think there's any way in the world Tennessee is going to have a decent football team in 2021. Therefore, you're postponing the inevitable. So, I think he's doomed one way or the other.
And I think the question is, does the university side understand the decay and the things that are happening to the athletic department and the football program while they figure this out? I understand you want to figure this out, you want to do things right, but do you understand what's happening to the football program in the meantime?
Does the board
Certainly,
understand
I think there's people that believe that is not the case.
Well, there's an idea that, okay, now you've got a football coach as your AD, so that helps. Then you got a chancellor and the chancellor is big on sports. So
everybody's singing Kumbaya for a while.
But does it go all the way up to the board of trustees? Or I think most places you look and there's an org chart where it's the organizational chart has box that says board of trustees and a little line that connects to president, and so that's a box connects to another box. At Tennessee, you got all these boxes and there's no lines connected. That's the Tennessee org chart. It's just a bunch of boxes and you don't know who's talking to who. Chuck, let me ask you. Do you think he is as doomed as I think?
Well, I almost think not that it's too early to tell, but until they, it's like the old gambling Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. I'd say put a deadline on what you're doing here, and let's present the information you have. If you've got something,
unless you want to make a change,
build a case, then that's one thing. If you don't, then maybe you don't. But right now, I'm not ready to say he's as doomed as some people may think.
Okay, but I put it this way. If they bring him back after all this, it's going to be the latest on the list of only at Tennessee. We say that only at Tennessee. You're learning it.
It's true.
I told you when you got here. You wait and see. You can't cover this place like you do other schools.
Yeah.
And this is another one where to let him twist in the wind, only at Tennessee, if you then say, well, we're bringing you back, and here's Shecky Galakowitz from Halls High School. He's your new line coach, and we'll give you $20 to hire this, but good luck. Only at Tennessee.
But how does it make you look less than just a few months after you gave somebody, a 2-year extension? And you gave somebody a vote of confidence, this is our guy, and then you turn around and you're in this mess?
All right, the last person to say something positive about Jeremy Pruitt was Philip Fulmer in the release about the bowl. Has Philip Fulmer turned on Jeremy Pruitt?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Anybody else think that he might have shifted his views?
I think he's having second thoughts.
He's a man who knows how to... Which way is the wind blowing? I mean... He's a political beast. He's really good at politics.
I think ultimately,
if he feels that his guy's going down,
Ultimately, you see, they're about a week at least past when ideally you would have already made a decision.
Yeah.
And there's no sort of end in sight. It may come soon. Who knows? You may rush something. It's tough to know. But ultimately, if you make a change, the only thing you're hurting the new coach is kind of the roster. And with the transfer portal, you only have, 4 or 5 scholarships still left. You can fill some holes. You're okay. The coaching stuff and all this, if you hit reset, the players, the roster is the only thing that's hurt at that point. And so the upside to making a change is different than trying to keep him and bring him back.
Well, you're also hurting the job again. This job is people think it's a great job. Who wouldn't come here? Well, you saw the last couple of searches. Who wouldn't come here? You offered millions upon millions to Mike Gundy, and he said, no, I'd rather stay in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I think Matt Campbell's a great coach at Iowa State. Until the last 20 years, you ask any coach at Iowa State ever to come to Tennessee, they're jumping at it. I don't know that he would. So when you're doing this to a coach, other coaches notice this. What's happening? They look at it and they say, wait a second. They'll let him twist in the wind. Wait a second. They tore up Shiano's contract because the fans revolted. Do I want to go there?
John, there's a reason 7 coaches turned you down before Jeremy Pruitt took the job.
And here's where I'm getting at with this. Tennessee went through one of these mid-January deals before when Lane Kiffin up and left. That was January 10th or 11th, I think, right around this time. That's past the window of normal movement. Most guys don't like to leave right before a signing class. Well, your program's not as good as it was 10 years ago. You're in worse shape now than you were then in terms of reputation, and you can tie it to all this stuff. Losing, more firings, the way Shiano was handled, how strong is your AD? Your AD's, will he be around the whole time? All that stuff. And then the way you're treating Pruitt. Are they cutting their own throats in terms of if they do make a move on Pruitt here this week, let's say? They're going to have a harder time finding a coach because it's mid-January?
You're thinning the pool. I can think of one guy who won't care, who'd run here. But you're definitely thinning the pool.
They put a freeze on hiring.
It's a hiring freeze, yes.
He would crawl over a frozen pond.
And I think the appeal of jobs can be cyclical, which John, I think is kind of what you're getting at.
Sure.
You look at this job in the 90s, boy, it was a really very appealing job, one of the better ones in the country. Right now, it's not. And a lot of people around here don't want to face that, but that's just the truth. And it's the fall of the program. It's the dysfunction of the program. We had Cole Kubelik on that talked about how disturbing and how crazy it was looking at Tennessee from his perch as an SEC network guy. This job is not what it was, and the timing of it makes it even harder to hire a really good coach, in my opinion.
Doesn't mean you can't get it back. I mean, now you've got people that say, boy, I'd love to land at Clemson. Well, until Dabo Swinney did what Dabo Swinney did, nobody looked at Clemson as one of the top 3 or 4 jobs in the country. So it is cyclical. You get the right guy, it can be fixed. But right now, you're on the low ebb. There aren't going to be people fighting. Well, maybe one guy who's got a heck of a track record. But Chuck, let me ask you, there are people out there who are thinking that, okay, what they're doing is they're negotiating the buyout with Pruitt already. They're already talking to coaches quietly. They've already got these deals in place. And Fulmer, Tennessee, is going to do what Texas did last week, and that is fire their guy and hire their guy on the same day. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, I mean, anything.
Well, I shouldn't say a possibility.
Possible,
yeah, okay. Let me narrow you down. Do you think that's likely?
No. I think you're looking more at what you're doing and getting to the bottom of this and then deciding what's best for everyone. And I can see it coming to the point where Jeremy Pruitt isn't exactly 100% enthusiastic about staying here.
Here's another little interesting tidbit on this. So Jimmy Sexton represents Pruitt. He represents like 99% of the coaches out there. So are you going to fire Pruitt and then hire a Sexton guy?
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting negotiation if it ends up coming to that.
Especially if you're trying to not give him his buyout.
Yes.
That's another thing. We're talking about the things that a coach would look at. How long is my AD going to be there? That kind of stuff. And don't think that coaches aren't going to call Pruitt and say, what's it like working for Fulmer? A former football coach. Was that good? Was that bad? Was he on your side? Did he turn on you? What's the deal there? But the other thing is, coaches are going to look at it and say, well, what good am I signing this contract to get a buyout? They tore up the contract with Shiano. They didn't give Jeremy his buyout. They're fighting him on it. That also works against you. Right or wrong, this job is just a mess. I'm afraid. We'll see. Hopefully that's not the case. But in terms of them making a fire and hire in the same day, Doesn't that seem a little too nice and neat for Tennessee?
Exactly.
Well,
I mean,
another quick thing too. I don't think the state of Tennessee has ever been better as far as consistently producing really good high school football players, and yet the appeal of the program has gone down. Right when you've got some really nice players in the, you know, look, you can't, your whole roster can't be made up of Tennessee players.
Right.
I get that, but this state is so much better now in recruiting than it was years ago. But the appeal of the job is not.
Yeah, the boom in Nashville has. You know, you're still not Georgia or Florida, but you're much better than you used to be, and that's a good point. You can't take advantage of it, and you're not putting down roots with kids who are growing up saying, "Oh, I want to play with the Vols." Yeah. Another bad irony. All right, only at Tennessee. I said it in this segment. Let's talk about that next. I figured out what the issue is. It's actually, it may be a portal to another dimension, but I figured out what Tennessee's problem is. We'll discuss that, and also we'll rank, where does this mess rank with Tennessee's all-time greatest messes? We'll have the list. Come on back.